Not awesome to be in the house of the Lord this morning? Amen. To all those that are watching at home, make sure you lean in this morning. Make sure that, over your bowl of Cheerios that has just been poured in your bowl, make sure that you lean in, not lean in it, but lean into this message and make sure that you, wives, make sure you elbow your husbands and make sure they're awake and make sure that they're with me this morning. Amen. And so for those of you that are kind of confused, have no idea who I am, my name is Jeremy Tyner. My beautiful wife is on the keys this morning. Yeah. And so we were back here in February, and I was the one that was, I've been reminded several times that, oh yeah, you're the guy that preached about snow when you were here in February, and then it snowed like 3 days later. So my bad, y'all, my bad. But just so y'all know, like me and JC are like this, son, so just be careful. He listens to me. Anyway, but we're just so happy and excited to be here and officially be part of the Oasis family. We moved back in April. Amen. So we're just so happy to be here, and I know some names, so forgive me if I keep saying like, "Hey, guy, just give me a minute, give me a minute." I got to learn all these new names. So, but either way, I know this is where God has called us because I had confirmation the first time I went through Whataburger and got a Dr. Pepper milkshake. This, y'all, I'm so thankful this is where God has called us because this is confirmation. Me and Dr. Pepper are tight. We put that in a milkshake, that's a whole other level. Amen. But so last Sunday, I reached out, actually previous Wednesday, and I was supposed to brought this message up, and the back, well, actually James too, and I reached out to Pastor Jonathan. I'm like, this is where we are in a country and as a nation, and the way the world is. If there's going to be a response from Oasis Church, it needs to come from our leader, senior pastors. I know my lane. I try to swim in my lane. And so I'm like, they don't need to hear this from me. They need to hear it from you all. So I felt uncomfortable. But I also know that the back half of James chapter 2 also gives us a game plan or lays out a plan itself on what we need to do moving forward. Because the whole back half of James chapter 2 talks about basically without works, our faith is dead. So I think as a time right now, I think the time of talking is done. I think us just keep talking about it. It was mentioned yesterday as we walked around Austin and prayed for the city. It was mentioned as far as that if you don't know about it by now, and let's stop with the awareness. If we don't know about what's happening right now, where have you been? So right now, we need to really stop focusing on the talk and start focusing on our actions, on our works, being doers of the gospel. So as we walked around, I was meeting people and talking to people and seeing the hurt and the pain that's there. And so if we can just pray real quick, because I really want us to just tap into what God has for us, because I believe we can take from this experience, people at home, you can take from this encounter this morning, and we can actually begin to apply it, not just in our homes, but in our communities, in our schools, in our place of work. Father, right now, I ask you just to come upon us. We ask you just to not just bless us, but open our hearts and our ears to receive your word this morning. Father, I speak against any kind of distractions that's happening. I speak against any kind of things that need to be disconnected. But God, connect us to your word. Connect us to what you have for us this day. In Jesus' name, amen. James chapter 2, verse 14 says, "What good is it, my brothers, if someone says he has faith but does not have works? Can that faith save him?" Now, this verse alone, this one verse, has caused so many arguments and interruptions in the church setting because it kind of basically contradicts what Paul has all been talking about. Because even the great Martin Luther in the 1500s tried to get the book of James removed from the Bible. He actually called the epistle of James the epistle of straw, that it was dead and lifeless and pointless without validation or point. And the reason why is because he was going back to what Paul was saying. And so when Martin Luther was reading this, he remembered Romans chapter 4 or 5 when Paul wrote, "And to the one who does not work but believes in him who justifies the ungodly, his faith is counted as righteousness." Nothing about works. Ephesians 2, 8, 9, "For by grace you have been saved through faith. And this is not by your own doing, it is the gift of God, not as a result of works, so that one may boast." So how can we harmonize what appears to be a blatant contradiction in the Word of God? So this is how we have to break this down, is that when it says, can this work save him, we have to understand there's three types of save that's being used in the New Testament. We have the justification, which is basically being saved from the penalty of sin. We have glorification, being basically saved from the very presence of sin. And then we also have sanctification, being saved from the power of sin. So which of the three is now James referring to? Well, I don't know. We have to go back to figure out who James is talking to. James is talking to the church, and we also know in verse 14 it says, my brothers or my brethren. So we know he's talking to the church. So James is talking about sanctification, not justification. So basically what James is saying is that James is taking the opposite approach of Paul. Paul was saying, sinners, this is how you become justified. And James is saying, saints, this is how you become sanctified. Basically, Paul was saying, this is how you get from heaven up to earth, from earth up to heaven. And James is saying, this is how you get heaven back down to earth. It's not just through our faith, but it is our works with our faith that does that. It's our works plus our faith that does that. Now, here's the thing. One can be justified, but yet not sanctified. You can be forgiven and free from the penalty of sin through grace and salvation, but yet still be under the power of sin because you have not been yet sanctified. That is the reason why your faith has never got you out of a trial, out of a tribulation, or out of that addiction. The reason why that you're still under that same addiction because you have yet to be sanctified. You're only justified. And the way you become justified through sanctification is by adding works along with your faith. Are you all with me so far? All right, so make sure you're all with me. So when James is writing, he's writing about basically our works and our faith coexist. They go hand in hand. Basically, Paul was Christianity 101, and now James is teaching the master class. This is how it's all working out. So James goes on, and he basically saying that our first point is our faith and our works is larger than our words. Here in America, we have a great deal of talking. We are great talkers. We know some great talkers. But yet when it comes to them to back up the words, where are they? You know how many times I was trying to get a softball team together, and he goes like, yeah, I play softball all through high school, great. And this dude can't catch a grounder, can't catch a pop fly. And I'm like, no, this is the batter's box. You stand right here. So we use all these words to talk up a big game, but yet what's more important is I don't need to hear you talk. I need to hit you, see you hit the ball out in the outfield sometimes, and maybe take a couple laps around the bases. I can care less about your batting average in high school. Can you at least just hit the ball? Do me a favor. And so as Christians, we talk about grace and forgiveness and love, but yet as a church, where is our works? As a family, where is our works? Because even verse 14, if someone says he has faith, but Matthew 7:21, not everyone who says to me, Lord, Lord, will enter the kingdom of heaven, but the one who does the will of my Father who is in heaven. And so James gives us this awesome example. Verse 15, if a brother or a sister is poorly clothed and lacking in daily food, and one of you says to them, go in peace, be warmed and filled, without giving them the things needed for the body, what good is that? So also faith by itself, if it does not have works, is dead. That person that needed food daily did not need a prayer meeting. He didn't even need a Bible. He didn't need a group study. He didn't need an online connect group. He didn't need some great words. He didn't need encouragement. What that person needed was a stove, a refrigerator, and a gift card to H-E-B. How about we work on getting them situated, and then we work them into the church instead of the other way around? There's been so many people that they can't even pass out a hot dog unless they put a church card next to it. How about we just go out there and just be doers of the gospel, and it doesn't matter if we ever see them in this place ever, but instead we're going to be doers and let our faith be recognized by our works. Because there's an awful lot of Christians that you wouldn't think they're Christians if you only judge them by what they do. So when the world sees you and we're a book to be read. And so when the world sees us, what are they reading? What's filled in our chapters? Is that book ever open for the world to see by you doing things out of generosity? I love the fact that people are taking social media and they're posting things about today's time. Don't get me wrong, I love this. I love the fact that there's people saying, I'm going to teach my kids the wrong and the sinfulness of racism in this country. I applaud that. But please don't let that be the last thing that we do, because for every parent that's teaching their kids, there's 5 that's not. And so what we're going to do is, if we just keep teaching our kids, all we're doing is that we're passing them the problem for them to deal with when they get in our situation. So instead of just teaching and talking to our kids, how about they see us do something? How about they see us work instead of just talk? How about they see us do something? And even Jesus said in Matthew chapter 25, for I was hungry and you gave me food. I was thirsty and you gave me drink. I was a stranger and you welcomed me. I was naked and you clothed me. I was sick and you visited me. I was in prison and you came to me. And the righteous will answer, saying, Lord, when do we see you hungry and feed you? Or thirsty and give you drink? When do we see you a stranger and welcome you? Or naked and clothe you? And when did we see you sick or in prison and visit you? And the king will answer, truly I say to you, as you did it to one of the least of these my brothers, you did it to me. Everything that was listed, that was through there, was not works. It wasn't faith. It was all works. It was all action, because your faith cannot clothe somebody. Your faith cannot feed somebody. Your faith can't visit somebody. However, if you apply the works, we can use our works to feed somebody. We can use our works to clothe somebody. We can use our works to do all these things. And then we apply the works to our faith. And from that, our faith becomes complete. It's the sanctification. So basically, the church itself, not just Oasis, the church itself is pointless if it doesn't make the world around us better. It's pointless, because this is where we have to break this down. Just break this real simple, is that we cannot control what happens in Seattle. We can't control what happens in Dallas. We can't control what happens in Fort Worth or New York City or Boston or Detroit or Chicago. We can't control anything, but you know what we can control? What happens in our own world. We can only control what we do and how we respond and how we act. And so for my life, there would never be in my world, there would never be racism that's not checked. In my world, there would never be someone dying from racism because no one else intervened. In my world, it already stopped. In my world, I can't control yours or anyone else's, but in the world of Jeremy Tyner, it's done. It's done because now, the reason why is because now my works has been brought alongside with my faith. Because if we don't, as a church body, if the world doesn't see change coming from this place, then what are we doing? I love the encouragement for one another, but this world, even as we walked around the city, you couldn't but help to feel the hurt and the heartache of those, and to be able, and I know, but please, you have to understand this, I know that just some simple words isn't going to undo over 400 years of unfair treatment. I get that. It's the same way when you go and you don't eat right and you gain 30 pounds, you're not going to lose 30 pounds in a day. Because I was going to the gym 6 days a week. 3 people laughed. I don't know if you guys are, I heard 3 people laughing over here. They're like, that dude's never been to the gym. No, honestly, I promise you. I need people on Facebook. Some of those up in Michigan that know me can comments right now. Like, I've seen them in there. But here's the thing. When the virus hit and the gym shut down, little Debbie moved into our house. Little Debbie moved in, and then we moved to Texas and brought little Debbie with us. And then there's Chick-fil-A, and there's Whataburger, and there's Raising Cane's, all these awesome places that we don't have in Michigan. And so all of a sudden, I'm just packing on the weight, but all of a sudden I went to the gym. I went to the gym one day, and I got home, and I stepped on the scale. I'm like, that ain't right. I want to rebuke my scale because I'm like, you have no idea what I just went through and the sweat that poured out of my body. I'm like, wanted to cuss my scale out in a godly way and stand on it. Oh, don't act like you don't do that driving on I-35. I've been here for 2 months and I already know that on I-35. Already know it. You sit back there, like cross your arms, like I don't do that. But I'm on the scale, and I was so upset because it didn't change. It didn't change. And then I realized that I had several months of bad habits that it's going to take me several months to work it off. And so this country has 400 years and longer of horrible treatment. So it's not going to end with just one march or one sermon or one Facebook post. It's going to take a lot of time. It's going to take us, this generation, our kids, it's going to take a lot of time for us as together, coming together. But here's the thing. You don't have to have the faith to finish. You have to have the faith to start. That's it. Our little 9-year-old, I love her. She's the only one of my kids that look like me, poor thing. But I love her. And so she's been having issues with sleeping in her bed. And so I was trying to talk to her. I'm like, baby, I said, listen, don't worry about, because she's all worked up thinking, well, Cohen's 13 and he sleeps in his bed and I'm only 9. I got to do this like 4 years from now. I'm like, baby, how about don't worry about what's going to happen next week. How about you just try tonight? Don't worry about the big thing of even you sleeping in your bed when you're 13 and 16 and 19, whatever. But how about we just try tonight? Just work on just tonight. And as a country, our response, we can't think of a world without racism. We can't think and have the faith of all this because it's always going to be present. But here's the thing. We don't have to have the faith to finish it. We just have to have the faith to start it. We just have to have the faith to just get it moving. Just keep it going. In James 2:18, it says, but someone will say, you have faith and I have works. Show me your faith apart from your works. Now I show you my faith by my works. You believe that God is one. You do well. Even demons believe and shudder. Do you want to be shown, you foolish person, that faith apart from works is useless? Because here's the thing. Demons believed. They're not atheists. Demons believed. They know very well who God is. So their faith isn't in question. Their belief, so basically knowledge itself isn't going to work. Just because we know that there's evilness in the world, that's not just going to work. Just because we know this, it's not going to happen. What has to happen is that we have to apply works to it. So what you believe will affect how you behave. What you truly believe in your heart, what you truly believe in your mind and your soul is going to have an effect on what you do in this world. And true belief will show itself in true behavior. That's why we have so many people that claim that there's something they're not. We know that because their works don't back it up. Because it's all going to, our belief will show itself in true behavior. That's why when we're standing in line at a Starbucks and you feel like you just have to do something and it doesn't make sense to anyone else around you, but you still have to do it anyway. You know, either like just going to say, hey, I know you don't know me. This is going to sound weird, but I just want you to know that Jesus loves you. Something like that. Ooh, that's right. That's awesome. We need to do that more often. As far as when God begins to speak to our spirit in those subtle moments, is that we have to take that as an opportunity, take that as an interruption to our day and our schedule, and say whatever is happening on in that person's life, they need to hear this. And so how can I say that I'm a Christian and I'm a believer if I'm going to set on the works that I'm supposed to be doing in this world? Second point is I want to bring up is our faith plus our works equals deliverance. Now this is going to be, I'm going to go through this. I was so excited when I saw this. In verse 21 it says, do you remember that our ancestor Abraham was shown to be right with God by his actions when he offered his son Isaac on the altar? You see, his faith, his actions worked together. His actions made his faith complete. And so it happened just as the scriptures say, Abraham believed God and God counted him as righteous because of his faith. He even was called the friend of God. So you see, we are shown to be right
with God by what we do, not by faith alone. Rahab, the prostitute, is another example. She was shown to be right with God by her actions when she hid those messengers and sent them safely away in a different road. So when James is trying to show us that with faith and works is deliverance, he picked two people that were polar opposites. Even more opposites than me and my wife. Like I love junk food. She wants to eat healthy. Like Captain Crunch is my captain, and she's, yeah. I like the kind of Captain Crunch that like kind of like gives you scars and rip your mouth, like kind of Captain Crunch. Like we don't. All right. So this section, for those at home that don't know, this side of the room is operating on a 3-second delay, and this side of the room is with me all the way. My wife and I were opposites, and we don't really like even the same movies, and so so I've been brought into the theater and all these different things, and I'm like, it's great, and I'm like, oh, let's go do it, and because I'm a supportive husband, because she needs to know that I don't just love her by my faith, but with my works. That's a different message anyway, and so we're going through all this, but James picks out Abraham and Rahab. And they had absolutely nothing in common. Nothing in common. Abraham was a father to the Jewish nation, and Rahab was a prostitute. Abraham was basically a godly man, and up in Detroit, we would call Rahab a dirty birdie, basically, if we were going to use that terminology. For those that in Detroit would say that. No, I wouldn't say it here in Texas. That's just Detroit stuff. And then Abraham was a friend of God. Now this side is lagging. Whatever was happening on this side, just transfer it back over to this side. Abraham was a friend of God, but Rahab belonged to the enemies of God. They were complete opposites. But however, how they acted and how they believed determined, what they did. And so even with Abraham, he was called the father of faith, and he was given a promise to be a father of many nations, and he was 100 years old when he was given Isaac, his son, finally becoming a father at 100 years old. His promise is there. And then God asked him to sacrifice that son. And Rahab lived in Jericho, the Bible tells us that her house was within the wall or on the wall. It was basically a prime location to see where people were coming and going within the city. And by her faith, she knew about God, because when the two spies from Jericho, when they came in to spy on Jericho, she even told the two Hebrew spies, she even told them, she's like, I know about your God. We're all here. We all know about him. We heard about what he did for you in Egypt. As a matter of fact, we know that he's going to give you this land. So her faith was there. She knew. But here's the thing, that if the sanctification removes the power of sin or brings deliverance, we also know that Abraham brought deliverance upon himself when he drew the knife back to slay Isaac. He didn't know that as he was walking up the mountain on one side, there was a ram that was walking up on the other side. And then through that action itself brought deliverance. And even with Rahab, she had no idea what was going to happen. But as she hid the two spies in Jericho, when the walls of Jericho came down, they said, well, go to Rahab's house and get her and her family. Well, how can they go to Rahab's house if it's in the walls, if the walls came down, unless she was delivered and that section of the wall stood still and they were able to access Rahab, and it wasn't by her faith that kept the walls up, but the walls stayed up by her works that was going along with her faith. So if our nation wants to be delivered, if our communities want to be delivered, it's not just going to come through prayer meetings and shaking hands and hugging necks. It's going to come with our works along with our faith. That's when deliverance happens. That's when deliverance happens. Because we know that our country can be forgiven, justified. We know that our city can be forgiven through justification. But what our country and our cities need more than anything else is sanctification, and that is simply being removed from the power of sin that has a hold on this area and on this country. And that's only going to be completed when we bring works along with our faith. Amen. And then my third comment, or third point is our faith and works is something that I do. Verse 26, for as the body apart from the spirit is dead, so also faith apart from the works is dead. We just have to ask ourselves when we're doing something, what's the point? What's the meaning of what we're doing? What's our end objective? What's our goal? It even says in 1 Corinthians 16, let all that you do be done in love. Be done in love. Everything that we do be done in love. Even Jesus said, by this, everyone will know that you are my disciples if you love one another. The reason why I love Oasis and the reason why that I was so proud to be a member of Oasis yesterday was seeing people from this assembly, from this body that was greeting and talking with people, and they didn't even know if they're in agreement on philosophy or doctrine, and none of that stuff even mattered. What really mattered was the fact that we're going to take this time and take this opportunity and share and show the love of Christ, not with just each other, but those that don't even know what we're doing as we walk around this place. I thought it was awesome when Pastor Alex, I was watching this when he led a prayer. It was so great because I saw cars that pulled up. They pulled up at a red light and they were waiting for the light to turn green. And as Pastor Alex was praying and talking, I saw car windows begin to lower down so they can actually hear what he was saying. Think about that. Car windows began to lower down to hear what was being said and what we were out there doing. One thing I didn't see was the car windows go back up. They stayed down, and they stayed until they were forced to go. And the reason why is because this world is starving. This world is hurting. And shame on us if we withhold it. I want those that see my life, the day that I check out from this earth and I get my eternal reward at my funeral, I want what's said about me is we didn't just see him live by faith, but we saw it through what he did. And I think that would be the greatest compliment I could ever receive about my life, is being told that I wasn't just a sayer of the gospel, but I was a doer of the gospel. Meaning that I'm going to do things that doesn't make sense to some people. I'm going to do things that's going to make me uncomfortable. I may have to give some things that's going to maybe make it tight in our house for a little while. What's more important is the fact that those around me and those in my city and those in my community experience the gospel in the way they never done it before. And it's not going to come through handing out Bibles. It's going to come by us getting out of our comfort zone and getting to work with our actions. So please keep talking. Please keep sharing. But deeds are the outer reflection of our inner transformation. If you want to know why maybe we're not growing, maybe we're stuck, is maybe our faith is now, as James said, our faith is now useless. Because our faith has now got us in the door of heaven, removed from the penalty of sin, but our faith on earth is now useless. And what good is that? There's nothing else that I can't stand is to have things in my life that's useless. I hate it. I'm the kind of guy that I just want to throw everything away. Even if I think I can use it, I want to get rid of it. My wife she'll ask me where something is at, and I'm like, oh, babe, I'm sorry. That was in the trash bin like 2 months ago. My bad. I had a moment when we were moving. We sold our house in Michigan before we came down, and I only had like one trash day left. I had one trash day left. I'm like, oh, dear Jesus, these people are going to hate me. I got so much stuff I got to get rid of. And I just piled and piled and piled all of our trash. It was useless. It did no good. And as I looked at it, I actually took a picture. And I posted on social media, I put on Facebook, and I just said that sometimes in our life we have to leave the junk behind in order to go forward. It's pointless for me to take useless things to occupy a new place. If I didn't use it then, if it was garbage then, why would I need it now? I have a rule for me, I have a rule. As far as if I haven't worn it, if I haven't used it, whatever with it, in a year, I donate it or throw it away. So when it comes to our faith, if it's not accompanied by our works, our faith is useless. You know that broken iron that you have in the closet? Every house has one. Every house has that one thing, the broken iron, the broken ironing board. The one thing that if we ever found that one piece, it would work. We have the junk drawer that's full of just miscellaneous things. And we hold on to it. We hold on to it in the event we may need it, but in all reality, it's just useless. But if we could ever get to the point where what was once useless, not just be restored, but put it out to use for our benefit, for the world's benefit. So I don't want my faith to be considered useless, but instead I want heaven to come down. This world needs heaven. Instead of us focusing on how to get there through justification, I think we need to work on sanctification and somehow get heaven back down here. Let the world experience a taste of it. I love when I walked yesterday and I was able to see different genders, races, colors, backgrounds. And we were there with one cause. And for me, that was powerful. A heart that is continually being transformed into likeness of God will reveal itself through actions or works. So right now, Father, I ask just to open up our hearts. I speak boldness into those that are setting. Father, there are so many of us that just want to know, what do we do next? We're searching for answers, and we know that you're the solution. So right now, Father, I ask that you would not just speak into, but energize the doers inside of us. Those that feel complacency, I speak energy. Those that feel nervousness and they just don't know what to do, Father, I ask to give divine direction. Right now, in the name of Jesus. Pastor Jonathan sent me a message from Paul Scanlon. It was entitled Erroneous Transfer, and I can't do the accent like Pastor Jonathan does because Paul Scanlon he's Irish, isn't he? I believe. Like Erroneous Transfer. That was good. Erroneous transfer is when you have a problem that you take on that was never to been yours to begin with. Basically, when the utility bill from your neighbor's house gets in your mailbox and they say it's your responsibility to pay it, that was erroneously transferred on you. I refuse to pass on an erroneous transfer to my children. I refuse to pass on an erroneous transfer to my grandchildren and my great-grandchildren. I can't control your world. I can't control your cities. I can't control where you are at. Those at home, I have no idea where you may be watching. I can't control your city. But all I know is in my life, in my world, there's no erroneous transfers. This is my problem that was passed down to me that I am going to deal with. And I'm going to deal with it through my actions along with my faith. So if you believe that this morning, how about we stand to our feet and give God one giant hand clap of praise in this house?